thank you for tuning in. Remember, the conversation begins right now, and tonight we are shifting a little bit to matters to do with the young leaders, and of course, in particular, the varsity politics. You know, the nitty-gritty that involves the politics itself, the now ever-growing trend of actually the election being quite expensive when you compare, or rather to many perception of many people. Well, those are some of the emerging statistics that to some might sound as shock, but that is the reality on the ground. Besides that, there have been quite a number of issues within this, but the good thing is we have the leaders themselves here to just give us, or rather to put us into perspective of how all these things are happening. So today we are asking, which way varsity politics, from expensive elections campaign all the way to many matters that involve university elections. And to join me into the discussion is Robert Bunaya, that is KUSA President, Kenyatta University Students Association President, and Brian Mutevu, that is KUSA President, Jomo Kenyatta University Students Association President. And gentlemen, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Yeah. And I will begin. Recently, Kenyatta University, of course, held its election. Yes. And of course, you are now the president. You're sworn in yesterday. And I'll begin by saying congratulations.
Thank you.
And there is a matter that has really, shocked many. I'm talking about the expensive election campaign. Yes. How much does it cost to actually run for that office?
Honestly speaking, it costs quite a lot to actually get run for office, because it's an expensive expedition that you're actually carrying out as a leader. But it's something you have to go for if you're willing to become a leader in any public institution or in a university. Yeah.
All right. Well, in an estimation, if you were to, not exact figure, but you can just round off, how much in terms of value, how much does it cost? How much did you use?
To the nearest 1 million, or to the nearest hundreds of thousands. Depends on which exact figure you require from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But an estimation is about 600,000.
600,000.
Yes.
Well, that might sound to many as, a surprise and even a shock for a student. And this begs the, who is your sponsor?
Myself, you see, it actually depends on the kind of person you are. Besides being a student, I am a corporate personality myself. I have my own company called Sort of Agencies, where I have a stream of income that actually comes from the same. Then it also depends on the kind of people that are surrounding you. If you surround yourself with big people, they'll get to support you.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's perhaps where you self-equity that you get perhaps from your own pocket. And that's how it moves from one step to the other.
Okay.
Yes.
And of course, Brian, you?
Well, it's around a similar range. Maybe the system that we have in JKUAT is a little bit different, because here they have a coalition system. You come in with your whole party, so you might even have the grace of having people contribute for you. So being the president in a place like JKUAT, you have to kujisimamia, in simple terms. You have to stand for yourself. So it comes with also an expense, maybe half of what he said, around 400 maybe. That is what you'll spend. But also there's another unique aspect, especially when it comes to a matter of the students themselves. If they believe in you, first of all, they won't want to take too much from you. The second thing is also you find that people will contribute for you. Because for me, on my end, yes, there was some bit of money that I had raised personally, and of course, support from my family, but most of it, I can tell you, came from the students themselves who wanted to support me in order to achieve that cause.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you've actually mentioned about a very important aspect, and this is, if you have the student on their side, and actually we'll talk about, the real, leaders, because there's some talks about some of the leaders that are being elected, they are not the true representative of what majority of students will actually wish them to be there. But let's take a look at another very interesting aspect as far as election is concerned, and this in particular, the voting system itself. Well, when you look at this is the act that is, it was enacted by 2016, the University Act, and that is 41 AC. When you go to BA and of course AC and E1, it talks about the regulations that will govern the election system that will be done. And when you look at like the previous one, we had the universal suffrage, and right now we have the electoral, college, and that is what is being used by many institutions, even here in Kenyatta University. Well, that one has its own fair share of challenges, especially when it comes to the leaders that end up in that ballot. What is your assessment based on that electoral system, especially the college?
From my end, the system was actually input not so long ago, actually to deprive student leaders of their legitimate action of them actually having to get voted by one, as the system where it was one man, one vote. So over time, it has really had an impact, because the kind of student leaders that are being produced are of soft nature. When you find a person that has been supported by particular parties. But now, in my case, I'd speak for myself, and I could speak for me here. For me, once you've been chosen by the people, you could actually get to see that the kind of support you're getting is genuine support, and is the kind of support that is student-based, where you feel as if without you, their existence is null and void, and they actually do believe in your leadership. So in as much as it has had an impact, to some extent, you can choose a few questionable characters that you can actually find here and there, that once they leave the university political space, they go out there and become people that perhaps might not even have any significance in the political space. So it has had an impact over time, but it is my wish and my plea that let university leaders be chosen by fact and virtue of people actually wanting them, as compared to when someone actually influences people to actually get to vote for a particular side or a particular party. Yes.
Well, Brian, the leaders that end up in ballot, and even the leaders that end up now taking the mantle of leadership in this institution, people.
Well, as Sarova put it, he spoke for himself. Now, the question of the delegate system is somewhat a philosophical question. We take Socrates as the father of democracy, as they say. And there's a very key question that Socrates asked. Would you, if you were in a ship that was maybe supposed to ferry people from one point at sea to another point at sea, the biggest question was, would you choose a random group of people, or would you allow everyone to just drive the ship? Or would you choose the captains that can enable the ship to sail from point A to point B? So when it comes to the point of universal suffrage, actually, I even took part in last year's election, the general elections. And let me tell you, the people who vote in leaders in Kenya, man, some of them do not even maybe have the education. So it has some mishaps to it. The fact that, of course, now the power of the student leader is quite reduced, because you're no longer going to each and every student. You're no longer answerable to each and every student by the time you go out there for campaigning. But also, it has also enabled us to have at least leaders who are also quite thoughtful, people who have been able to at least reason. Just look at maybe some universities. You remember during those past times, it would take maybe, we even neglected choosing some universities because we knew that every time there was just a strike taking place. But right now, even before you go to the streets, you really have to have something that is pressing and not just a political agenda in order to call your people to the streets, you know. So it has some positive impact to it, but again, also you cannot negate the negative impact that this system has brought on board. Yes.
Well, that is where the problem lies, because, you know, much of the people, like when even you look at the conversation that involve these particular leaders that are being, you know, now elected, to many people, they think that this is not the true representative of the people, because some even accuse you leaders of getting to bed with, you know, the higher, some might call the administration, others will call higher authority, because they feel like you're not really passionate about the issues that really concern students. How will you answer that?
I'd answer that by saying this. A leader is someone that is legitimate. And if you find a legitimate leader, is a person that can clearly and articulately air out views on student issues without fear of contradiction or fear of perhaps being molded into something small. So when someone says that you've been lying with bed with perhaps the administration, perhaps it's true, because they don't actually see you go out there to actually articulate their issues well. Now, as I speak for myself, going to bed with the administration has perhaps its own repercussions, and someone might perhaps have their own reasons. But I'd just say one thing. You see, as a leader, once you're chosen, that legitimate feeling, once you're even exiting office, remains only if you, at one point or at a given point in your leadership or in your regime, you actually stood up to defend the rights of the students. So it all narrows down to it all goes back to, are you a legitimate leader? Were you chosen by fact and virtue of you having the support from the students, or were you just some other laggard that just got into office by just snitching at the back door? Yeah.
Well, Brian, Bonaya raised a very important, you know, aspect. Are you a legitimate leader?
Yes, so that is a question that sometimes I think even after Bonai is in office for some time, he'll find himself asking himself that very question. Because, okay, there's also an aspect to this that I want to bring forth. Sometimes also the people that put us into office, they expect you to articulate these issues. But now their expectations of how you articulate these issues might be different. There are people who know representation is going out to the streets and burning tires and chasing your vice chancellors and everybody in the university workforce, you know. But again, there's also being able to just tell the administration and just being able to sit with them and frankly having that frank conversation with them and telling them that this we do not agree with. And once you put your foot down as a leader, let's say something was supposed to happen, maybe raise some fees or something like that, and you tell them that this is something that my students will not be, we will not tolerate this, because at the end of the day, we are the clients in the universities. There is no university without students, you know. So just being able to articulate that is something that is very important. But now the biggest question here remains as simple as this. How do they expect you to articulate those issues? Yeah, so that is the question that also the comrades sometimes need to ask themselves. By the time when they tell a person maybe he's in bed with the administration, you know, that is a keen question that they have to ask themselves also.
Well, you know, the question, that question of how do they expect you to actually ask that question, well, I think that question was answered by the time they were voting, of course, you guys in, because they believe you have what it takes to actually represent them. Because I don't think if all of them can actually, you know, articulate their issues to the right people, that's why they have you guys. What do you have to say about that, Bonaya?
Now, again, I clearly state that there's a thin line between lunacy and diplomacy. As students, you don't have to resort into lunacy. there's an aspect of a leader called diplomacy, and in as much as the Greek metaphorical says, if diplomacy fails, lunacy prevails. But now, as a leader, you ought to exhaust completely the diplomatic side of yourself as a leader before resulting into lunacy. So I believe in a democratic and in a fair world, if someone actually wants to actually execute something, the diplomatic way should be used. And it is through peaceful dialogue, and you get to actually get what the students want and what the management wants. As student leaders, we're actually the bridge between the students and the management, because we actually get to face the challenges that the students face at the same time. We actually get to understand the management. So once we get to a table and we are shamefaced as we get to discuss on the same issues that are affecting me as one of the students, lunacy might at the end of the day prevail, but now it gets to a point where you hold back and say, let me use diplomatic ways. So as a leader, you also have to gauge and see which one is heavier, the lunatic in me or the diplomatic side. So choose between the two, which one would you go for?
All right.
For myself, I'd go for diplomacy. But when pushed, I might become a lunatic.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Brian, of course, now the question here is how to balance between, what the student wants and what the administration wants. So you have to really, take that balance, and that has been the bone of contention in most cases. Yeah. So how do you balance between the need of a student and that of the administration?
Okay. First of all, it's all about understanding how the system works. For example, let me give a case and something that has really puzzled me maybe during my tenure in office for the past year. It has been on the issue of, maybe it's actually what is happening right now in the change of the university funding model. When the first years reported, the actual fees that was on their fee statements was simply the cost of that course. For us who are already continuing students, let's say for me, I'm in my 4th year of study in the School of Agricultural Engineering, and I was paying only 20,000 shillings. A first year taking the same course, when you look at the fee structure, it's spanning something to do with maybe 300,000 Kenyan shillings. But you have to understand, where did this come from? It's not the fault of the administration to set it that way. They were directed by who? The government again. So if you get to understand the issues that are there, that are working there, but now there's some other issues such as delays. Maybe there's some repairs that need to be handled and the money was already set aside in the school. So that is no longer the fault of the government. It's now the fault of the people, such as maybe the administration, who really need to pull their socks and make sure these things get to the students quickly, So once you're able to understand maybe where you're serving, it becomes a little bit better for you to balance, because the things where you can, where you can point blame, and you say, this is your fault, fix it immediately. And you also know where to tell the students, guys, this is a bigger game. And unless we unite maybe even across all the universities in Kenya, because it is something that is affecting all of us, we cannot handle it as a single institution. So I believe it's all about being able to understand where you're serving and also who you're serving at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you talk about, actually I've spoken to my curiosity, and this is matters to do with the student, let's say welfare, for example. And in this case study, I'll just give you a very, pretty similar example to both of you. For example, let's say the issues to do with mail. Here, there, even at your school. In such matters whereby a student finds himself or herself having to dig deeper sometimes to actually, to cater for something that maybe a few months ago, or rather last semester, it was a little bit cheaper, but now the prices are a little bit higher. So in that case, there is those voices, the discontent voices among the students, and they are whispering. So you as leaders, in such scenarios where maybe there is something you can do about it, or maybe there is nothing that you can't do about it. So how do you deal with that, Bonaya?
When it comes to matters meals and when it comes to matters student welfare, particularly we've mentioned on the meals. For instance, for us in KU, for the past about 2 semesters, there has been a change of fluctuations of prices in the food prices in the mess. The best we could do is actually get to have external funding to actually get the students being able to access food inside the messes, because now these meals are actually a primary need, and it's very fundamental for a student to actually get to eat so that they actually get to function. So the best we could do is actually get people from outside, perhaps donors, come to the university, assist students, and in our own capacity as a school and as a university, we actually get to see how these prices can be reduced so that everyone can at least afford a meal or two, perhaps in a day. Yes.
Well, and Brian, of course, in the same breath, is this something that maybe some demand by the student could be out of your control as a student leader?
Honestly, I think for me, that is the most emotional thing that I've faced in office, because some of the cases that I witness, especially Eman, is just heartbreaking. You feel the pain of that student, but again, maybe even you as a student leader, you send so many 100 shillings maybe to people, and you get to that point where you realize that you can't send 100 bob to maybe 100 people daily who have had nothing to eat for the past 2 days or something like that, So one of the key things that I'm really pushing for, first of all, is student-driven initiatives. And what I mean by student-driven initiatives, maybe in my situation, it might be unique for me in a place like JKUAT, but I keep on asking for maybe the students who take part also in issues such as maybe agriculture, students studying that, they have their own clubs and societies. And what we've been encouraging them for the past maybe year as I took my tenure into office was, first of all, just asking for sections of maybe the farmland that is available in JKUAT to be able to raise some of the income or to raise some of the food. Producing definitely means that you're producing at a cheaper cost, and providing it to the mess, again, also is a circular economy. You tend to also create income for the students in line with that. Yes.
All right. Well, hold on to that thought. We are taking a very short break. When we come back, we'll be still diving into matters to do with students' welfare. See you in a bit. All right. Welcome back, and the conversation continues. And of course, gentlemen, I want us to switch gears pretty quick to something very interesting. I want to take a look at both of you. Let's say your manifesto. One of the things that is very crucial to the student welfare. Let's talk about security. Now, I want us to get into, some bit of practicability of it. So, how do you actually deal with, issues with security? I'll begin with you, Brian.
Yes. So first of all, in a place like Juja, it was quite notoriously known, especially even by the time that I got in there in my first year of study. We had the first strike due to matters in security. But the conversation has even changed nowadays, because the first thing that we told the police when we came into office was as simple as this. You either chase the robbers or we'll be out here chasing the police. But somebody has to be doing the chasing somewhere. So this might have sounded like a threat, but the thing that we really dread as student leaders, and this is something that also I believe that Bonaya will also concur with me, is losing a student. You were taken to the university to study. You did not go there to die. So first of all, engagement with the local police. The other issue is also encouraging our students, because security starts with you as a personal initiative. But now the other issue that now is even raising a concern now is that security has changed to being a matter of like it's now a personal matter. What do I mean by this? Ever since I got into office, I've lost more students to suicide, even compared to insecurity. Actually, since my tenure started, we have not lost a single student to insecurity. Maybe a few cases of muggings, which have been dealt with. That is something that we do not negotiate on, especially when it comes to an institution like JKUAT.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Bunaya, your 5-point agenda, and of course, which area do you think the attainable ones, and how do you hope to actually achieve them?
My 5-point agenda was 1 on security, 2 was on effective delivery of services to a student, where I actually focused on the dignity of a comrade, where I focused more on the things that are primarily required for someone to actually get to achieve the academic qualifications once they're in the university. Another agenda was for effective and modern accommodation services that are rendered to our students in the hostels. Another one was the effective delivery of healthcare services to these students as they stay within their stay in the university. And my last one was actually getting to deliver all these things that I've put forward to them as part of my manifesto. So this entire manifesto actually focused on the dignity of a comrade, because I believe a comrade requires particular facilities to actually get to thrive inside a university, being healthcare, basic accommodation, actually even meals to begin with. So me actually being in a position to ensure that whatever has been provided is of great significance and of good quality. That's, I believe, I will have delivered to the students.
Well, gentlemen, you're running out of time, and even on that your agenda, do you believe it's a pipe dream or something that can be attained pretty quick?
Can definitely be attained, because once you become a legitimate leader, nothing can stop you back.
All right. Well, fair enough. I wish you could have plenty of time, but that is all we had for you.